don't know about magic. I always called it the shining. And yeah, we both shine. Do your parents know?
About my shine? They don't talk about it. Or if I use it, they look at me different.
When I was a kid, I didn't understand the shining. I called it Tony. Thought he was my imaginary friend.
I thought you were my imaginary friend. For a long time.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
This is Cheapseat Reviews.
A poo-pooer of the Kubrick.
Yeah, I watched this a couple days ago, and the only thing that's prevented me from having a good night's sleep is my dog. So,
yes, please.
Hello, and thank you for listening to Cheapseat Reviews, the podcast that explores the Hollywood film industry for the greater good.
So now imagine a voice inside your head saying the greater good.
Oh, okay. Yeah, when Shining Voice happens, it's like it's more present. It's
right.
Like, it's
clear. It's like right on the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was loud.
That was pretty bad. Yeah.
Oh, I just exploded everybody's eardrums. I apologize.
No, that's a Microsoft Xbox gaming headset versus a $300 mic hanging from you.
Oh, well,
over there.
There's that. Except mine was free. This is episode 367, and tonight we're talking about Dr. Sleep. Paging Dr. Sleep.
It's all about sleep apnea and machines that you can use to help you breathe at night.
You know what? You're not wrong. That's exactly what this movie is. It's all about those things, those breathing thingies. You have one of those, don't you? Have one of those breathing things?
I certainly do. It has saved my life.
That's awesome. I'm really glad.
Because my wife would eventually kill me from my snoring.
From the snoring. Can I get one for my dog? Because she snores really loud. Should I get one for my dog?
I don't know. Just probably help. She'd sleep better.
Yeah, I just throw my socks at her or something to kind of wake her up. I am Sean Allred, and joining me tonight is unfortunately not Andrew. Working on this master's, life is hard, things get in the way, and so not Andrew tonight. But we do have, as you can tell, Sam. This movie is a seatbelt PSA, Vector.
Isn't all movies seatbelt PSAs? I mean, isn't that one of the most common tropes you see in anything dealing with car crashes and intentional car crashes? Right? And Sean, by the way, I saw that you've been playing baseball real well lately. So I need to stake you to the ground over here and stab you in places that will really, really hurt so that I can smell your breath, apparently.
That scene, man. That scene was rough.
Oh, brutal. It's brutal.
Brutal. Oh, my goodness. And, yeah. I don't really know how to transition from that, because that scene is like the only horror scene in the movie, and it's effective. That scene was very effective. And making his Cheapseat Reviews debut is TV's Travis will never stick his hand in a filing cabinet again from the Wait You Haven't Seen podcast.
Yeah, I'm never sticking my hand in a file cabinet ever. Like, degloving is one of those things I can't handle. And that was the second most difficult thing in this movie to watch. Behind the scene where they stake the kid to the ground. Yeesh.
Yeah.
Hand torture, degloving. I've never heard it referred to that way, but
I've heard that in the construction industry. There's a reason why a lot of guys don't wear their wedding rings, and it's because of that you basically get skinned alive. If your ring gets caught in something, it'll pull the skin right off your finger.
See, so before the job I have now, I did a lot of AV installs, and so I was I was working in the ceiling a lot with some power tools, nothing crazy, hand drills and things like that, But my wife heard a story about someone having their wedding band get caught and ripping the knuckle off, basically, and so that's why she bought me this silicone band. Yeah, and I wear it all the time for that reason, because
totally smart.
Yeah, if it gets caught, it's just going to rip off.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Travis, thank you for coming on the show. We're very excited to have you on.
Well, thank you for having me on. I was very excited when you mentioned that you wanted to do something spooky for Halloween season, and we got to talking, and Dr. Sleep came up, and I'm like, let's do it, because I got things to say about this one.
Well, I'm excited to hear of those things that you're going to say. And I can't remember how I think we were talking about, we were negotiating. See, again, I've mentioned this before. Usually what happens is I'll approach someone and say, hey, let's do a movie. And then they always respond with, well, it's your show. You tell me what you want to do. And then I'll usually respond with, here are 4 or 5 movies that we would like, that we're thinking about, that's just on our list of movies to do. And then I'll let them pick one of those. And I think you were actually a little bit more proactive. And I said, hey, we're looking at some stuff in October. And you said, well, have you done The Shining? I can't remember how it worked, but I said, no, but we do want to, we have done The Shining, but we haven't seen Dr. Sleep. And I think you were like, that's the one we're doing.
Yeah. Awesome.
Because
Absolutely.
now, are you a Shining fan? Are you?
I am.
One that enjoys it. Okay, because Sean over there is a doubter. He is a poo-pooer of the Kubrick, and it makes me a little sad at times. But there's
we're all entitled to wrong opinions. It's perfectly fine. I don't have a problem with that at all.
Perfect.
I'm a Kubrick fan in general. I actually was lucky enough to see. I think every one of his movies, except I did not watch Eyes Wide Shut on a big screen about 10 or so years ago in a local film festival that we have here every year, was doing an all Stanley Kubrick retrospective. So I got to see 2001 on a big screen with a wonderful sound system. And I got to see Barry Lyndon and Dr. Strangelove and all of them. I think Eyes Wide Shut was the only one I didn't watch that week. And The Shining was one of those, and I've loved that movie forever, just because I think it's a great atmosphere for a movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right. Well, I feel like I'm gonna have to defend myself some.
No. There's no defending that.
Well, there's an entire podcast of my views and opinions on it, so it's not like I can retract anything. I'll just simply say, I think that the film itself is a very beautifully shot, well done, well acted, well executed. Just, I was bored, and I didn't think it was scary. And I think that's a product of just having seen other things, since then. Because again, I watched The Shining for the first time 2 years ago for the podcast. And
well, there is something to be said.
Yeah.
There's something to be said about the '70s style movies.
Yeah.
That took their time. They all 80s. Take their time.
Yeah.
Well, and
even
Kubrick
Spielberg
more than
stuff.
anybody.
Yeah.
Like,
oh gosh. Yeah.
Well, and I've done a couple of old Spielberg, and I've done a couple of Kubrick films on my show, and it's the same thing. The whole premise of my show is somebody seeing something for the first time. So when I did 2001, it was somebody seeing it in the year 2020. And how different that's going to be than somebody seeing that movie in the late 60s, early 70s, or when I saw it in the 90s. So I totally get that. Like, those movies were slow burn. They were a very different thing. Yeah. And that's going to play into it. When you see a movie, it's going to play into how it feels for you.
And that kind of makes it, and one of the reasons I'm so excited about talking about Dr. Sleep is how you bridge that gap. Right, you've got The Shining in 1970s, a Kubrick film. How do you bring some of that style into a film that will talk to 2019 audiences? Yep. Right, and I think it's fascinating some of the choices that they decided to do with this. So, I'm excited to jump in when
no, definitely we're gonna jump in all over this, and I'm excited to talk about it too, and for the reason so I didn't know anything about Dr. Sleep. I remember when the commercials came out and they were saying Dr. Sleep, Stephen King's Dr. Sleep, and I didn't know what it was. And I heard a little bit like, oh, it's kind of a sequel to The Shining, but it was described to me as it's just more like it was described to me incorrectly, basically, is what I was trying to say. It was poorly described. So going into it for this viewing, I had no expectations of it being good or bad. I just went in very slate clean, which is, I think, kind of the good way, maybe the best way, because because what's happened is a lot of times when there's movies that I haven't seen that I should have seen before, and then I haven't, and when I finally watch them, I'm let down because of how much it was built up before I got to see it, and my expectations were this is this brilliant thing, and that's kind of what happened a little bit with The Shining, where I was told it's the scariest thing ever made, and
expectations play such a huge part in our movie going experience, such a huge one, and like I think that whoever if it's a single person or multiple people that told you like The Shining is the scariest thing, did you a disservice, because I don't think of The Shining as being scary in the traditional sense of a scary movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's more of a study of what can happen to somebody when they're isolated and how you can fall into that. But if you go into it with a different expectation, it's totally going to change things. If I tell somebody about, The Exorcist being the scariest movie I've ever seen, and then they go and watch it and they're like, well, this is lame, because they've grown up on the horror movies that are out today, and it's a different style.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So expectations are so big in so many things. I mean, not only in horror movies, but any movie. Look at the 2016 Ghostbusters, for instance. If you look at that movie in a vacuum, it's funny. I had no problem with it. I enjoyed my time watching it. I don't mourn anything. But so many people have this expectation that it has to be what fits their idea of a new Ghostbusters movie, that they've already decided what they're going to think of this movie before they see it. I see that way too many times. It's like, just go into a movie and watch it and have fun, come out the other side, and then decide if you like something or not. Don't make up your mind before you've seen anything.
And I think that's why J.J. Abrams and Disney had such a hard time with the Star Wars sequels, with expectations out of, through the roof, and doing fan service versus telling a decent story.
Yeah. I could go on for an hour about that.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Well, we have gone on for several hours, because we've done all three of the sequel movies, and it's funny, and it's really funny is if you go back and listen to our episodes in the moment, all four of us, three of us, whoever run the show, we all liked each one in the moment. And then once we backed up and looked at them from a 30,000 foot view, which we've done kind of recently, we're kind of like, these three individual movies don't make a good trilogy.
I mean, say what you will about the prequel trilogy, but Lucas at least had kind of an idea of where he wanted to go.
I think he did. I think it's I don't think the problem with the original, the 1, 2, and 3 isn't the overall story arc. We knew that we got to have little kid Anakin to adult Anakin. Like, we knew that going into it. The problem is all the ancillary stuff.
Yeah.
Jar Jar, midichlorians.
There's a few of those, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have my thoughts on George Lucas. He's a great idea man. I think his screenwriting needs some work.
Oh, yeah.
And world
he
building.
Needs some people to say no
dialogue, but yes, that's what made the first trilogy work so well, is there were some people that could say no to him, and that makes a difference.
Well, yeah, because he hadn't made his billions yet. He was just a dude. So, anyway, George Lucas has nothing to do with Mike Flanagan's Dr. Sleep.
It's true. So
I do want to say this, and I have not read either books of these.
Okay.
So I can only base my opinions on the movie and what we saw. I also want people to know that this movie was created as a sequel to the Shining movie. And I think that that's important, because I learned not that long ago, and we learned a little bit. I think, Sam, we talked about it a pretty good bit during the movie The Shining, that it's different than the book. And it's different enough that obviously Stephen King doesn't like it. He doesn't like that version of the movie. And so when they made this movie, you can't make it a complete adaptation of the book, because it won't make sense, because there's enough differences from the thing. So I'm just giving you like my preamble of I'm going to talk. We can talk about the books. And Travis, have you read the books?
I have read The Shining. I have not read I've read parts of some excerpts from Dr. Sleep, but not the whole thing.
Okay.
It is actually on my list to read, though.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm after watching this movie, I really do want to read the book.
I do
because
too.
I want to. There's so many moments in this movie that are so have that Stephen King feel to them that I'm itching to get more of that, and it's just that special kind of magic of his writing. It just translates so well sometimes into creepiness. You know, when we watched Gerald's Game, and the oh gosh, what's the tall guy that ended up being a real thing?
The Moon
Spoiler
Dancer,
alert.
the Moon
Man.
Oh yeah,
the
yeah.
Moon.
Moon. Yeah, it's Carl Strucken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's in this movie?
Yep.
Yeah, right. I'm kind of actually a little disheartened to think that the book is going to be so much different that I couldn't just jump into the second book and not enjoy it as much as I should, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. I get where you're going.
Okay.
So,
So having given that all that, I will start by saying I'll do the read since Andrew's not here. Again, not going to do an Andrew voice. I'm just going to simply read. Years following the events of The Shining, the movie, a now adult Dan Torrance must protect a young girl with similar powers from a cult known as the True Knot, Knot, who prey on children with powers to remain immortal. Yeah, IMDb did a pretty good job on that one. That's not bad.
So it's basically Stardust.
Yeah, actually,
in a lot of ways. Yeah.
in some ways,
You're not wrong. Like there's no lie detected there.
yeah. The difference is that Stardust is not, when they eat the heart of the dying star, it's not as gruesome and violent as this is.
Holy crap! Yeah. I'm gonna have nightmares. I watched it this morning, and I'm gonna have nightmares tonight. I know it.
Yeah,
I know it.
Well, I
guess
watched
that's what
this.
you're supposed to do, right? With these types of things,
Yeah,
Yeah.
supposed to have.
yeah. I watched this a couple days ago, and the only thing that's prevented me from having a good night's sleep is my dog. So,
Yeah.
They'll do that.
yeah, she's 13 and just old and weak bladders and things. So, Sam, why don't you lead us off with your 5-word review, please?
Absolutely. And I'm going to be, I've got 2 of them tonight. All right. And the first one I'm going to say is felt like an old story. For some reason, this movie and the my feelings around it felt like it's been told before, but it was almost a comfort story, but it was new, right? It's something I wasn't expecting. And I thought I was real interested in the way that it made me feel. But then my real kind of review-ish 5 words would be one step away from great. And in this movie and in how it's presented and in how it goes, there are so many incredible moments in this movie where I am, you are feeling for these kids. You are hurting for what's happening to them. You are, you want their lives to be better and these vultures / vampires to leave them alone. But I think it's where it tries to tie in to the original Shining story, especially the movie. I think it falls a little bit. And I don't know if it's directorial choices. I don't know if it's, how they visualize things, but for some reason, it felt like the entire third act was rushed. And when they finally got to the hotel, and even some of the things that happened at the hotel felt like they could have taken their time a little bit more. And I don't know if that...
Uh-oh. The internet got him, or he got put in a box.
Gremlins got him.
Did you get put in a box, Sam?
All right, now I'm back.
Okay.
How far did I get?
You were telling everybody
it
how
took their time. The third act, some of the stuff felt very rushed. The death of Maggie the Hat. Is it Maggie the Hat?
Rose
the Hat. Thank you. I wanted more. I wanted her to suffer more, I guess. I wanted to see more of the ghosts. it's kind of like sometimes you watch these sport movies, right? And they have people in the stands, and sometimes they just don't have enough people in the stands to make it look like a real game. That's how I felt in the hotel, where they should have had a zombie-like crowd of ghosts around them on that staircase. And there was like the 5 or 6 most known ghosts that came after him. I think it could have been amped up more in the hotel at the end.
Okay.
And I'm sure we'll talk about some of our favorite parts later on down the road. But I made the mistake of watching this movie at work, and in a lit office on my laptop. I wish I could have seen it at home with surround sound in the dark on a big screen, because don't do what I did, folks. Watch this the right way, because there are certain scenes and there's certain moments in here that are just gorgeous and that really do reflect a little bit of the Kubrick style that I do like. So, so that's kind of, I really enjoyed it, but it's just that close to being really good.
So I know you didn't, Sam. Travis, have you seen the director's cut of this?
I have not.
I didn't know there was one.
So
yeah.
This movie once again has stung us in the butt, where I say, "Hey Travis, let's do this movie" back in September, and on September 20th, HBO pulls it off their list. And we have the most issues with this at Halloween. I don't know why, but streaming services, like, we tried to do The Exorcist for 3 years and realized that every October Netflix takes it off. Every October they pull it. And so we discovered the only way we would be able to do The Exorcist is if we watched it in September for an October release.
Yep.
So I rented this. We rented this on Amazon Prime. Now, there is a director's cut, but you can't rent it. You can only buy it. And I wouldn't dare purchase a $14 movie sight unseen when I can watch the HD theatrical cut for $3.99, which is what I did. So I was just curious if either one of you had seen it.
Because we're cheap. I mean, it's in our name.
Yeah, it's in the name of the show for a reason. So
we're there, folks. Yeah.
I had to peddle some more T-shirts today just so I could afford the rental.
Yeah, it was one of those same deal. You could only buy it, and I originally watched it on HBO Max way back when, and then you're right, it left. Thankfully, I had another source, and I was able to watch it again. Yeah. But yeah, I do want to see at some point the director's cut just to see what else is put in.
It's 30 extra minutes. I mean,
there's already 2.5 hour
their
movie,
time.
So.
Yeah, maybe they take their time more. Maybe there's more atmosphere, right? And I think that's where what I was missing in a sequel to The Shining was simply the atmosphere.
All right, Travis, you have a 5-word review?
I do. I have 2 as well. I'll start with my more serious film reviewy 5-word review, and that is, for me, my 5-word review is perfect movie and book sequel.
Oh wow! Okay.
And the reason that I say that is the book was written as a sequel to the book by Stephen King, and the movie was made as a adaptation of the book and a sequel to the movie, and it managed to marry both, I think, as well as you possibly could. You mentioned how kind of that third act feels more rushed. That is movie only. That is not part of the book. All the stuff at the hotel is not in the book.
Oh, really? Oh, interesting.
Right, okay. Yeah. How much do you care about spoilers with the book?
I'm okay. Are you okay, Sean?
Yeah, I already know what he's about to say, so it's fine.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, right. in the book, when they go to the spot in Colorado, there's nothing left of the hotel. It's been burned down. So the hedge maze is gone. All of that. That was because in the original Shining book, the hotel blows up at the end of it. The hotel is gone at the end of the first book, so it's kind of tough to. Yeah. So that was Mike Flanagan deciding, hey, I want to you recreate this part and continue this. And he sort of had to convince Stephen King that it was a good idea. And King finally read it and was like, yeah, go for it. So that's probably part of why that feels a little more rushed, is that's less adaptation and more kind of original stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
But I just feel like adapting Stephen King is already an interesting proposition because his work is not directly translatable. You're going to be making changes to it anytime you adapt it to screen. It's just the nature of his writing. And the Shining movie adapted the story so differently. And then when you go to make a sequel and you're adapting the book that is a sequel, you can't just adapt the book because, Sean, you're right in like, it's not going to make any sense. Movie-going audience isn't going to know what's going on. This movie was already really poorly marketed, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. But they have to, like Mike Flanagan, the writer and director, basically realized, look, I love this book, but I also like the movie. And I think he even had a quote somewhere where he said, like, when you hear the Overlook Hotel, there's a picture in your mind of what that is. And it's because
sound.
of the movie and the sound.
Yeah.
And it's because of the Shining movie. Yeah. So he wanted to incorporate both of those things. And he saw it as kind of the quote was, I saw it as a gift to me as a fan and from me to Stephen King, because he was able to work in some elements from Stephen King's original Shining novel into the finale of his movie that adapted his sequel book. So I kind of love how they married those two things. The whole setting the boiler off and blowing the place up. That was how the original book ended. Kubrick didn't go that route. So now Flanagan gets to do that, which is a really cool way to kind of wrap that story up. Mm-hmm. So it's different enough, and it's different in a lot of similar ways that the original adaptation of the movie was. And I love that. I love adaptations and I love changing things because they're different mediums. They're, books and movies are very different. If I have to hear one more person tell me the book was better with that smug tone, I'm going to eat something that I shouldn't, because it just drives me insane. It's different. A book is different from a movie. And if you're going to make a movie about a book, you're going to adapt it. It's going to change. I don't care if you like the book better. That's fine. You can have that opinion. But don't tell me that the book is better all the time, because it's not always. Blade Runner is a much more interesting story than Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. And I've read that book and I've watched that movie. It just is. That's not a knock on Philip K. Dick. The book is fantastic, but it's not as interesting as Blade Runner.
Well, look at Stephen King's Shawshank Redemption versus the short story, right?
Yep.
Two totally different feelings. Yeah.
Well, or The Mist.
The one
King went on record saying that Frank Darabont wrote a better ending to The Mist than he did. So, or at least a more effective ending.
The one I always go to was Neil Gaiman's Stardust. Stardust the movie is better than Stardust the book, in my opinion. But
sure. And for me, it's not so much like what's better and what's worse. It's just that they're different. The Lord of the Rings films are some of the best adaptations of a written word to a film I've ever seen, because Peter Jackson and Philippa Boyens, they sat down and they knew what to cut in order to tell the story that was in the book, but that they wanted to tell. And they framed it so, because if you directly adapted The Lord of the Rings, that movie would be boring as hell.
Amen. Yes.
It's like I am super, super excited to see Dune, but I know that it has to be an adaptation because that book is dense. And if you've ever read Dune, you know it is not a quick read.
Yeah, I forced myself to get through Dune because you keep hearing how it's it's a classic, and it's if you like sci-fi, you have to like Dune, and I had a hard time. With that one. I almost put it down at one point.
I don't blame you. It took me a while to get through it too, and that's my thing. Is like it's different. Yes, there are some adaptations that are poorly done. I love Michael Crichton's Sphere as a novel. I ate it up when I was younger. That movie adaptation, not good.
Crap.
It's just not.
Well, it also shows. Wait, what?
Jurassic Park is a very, very interesting book. Fantastic movie. They're different. They're totally, not exactly the same at all. Yep. Both are good. So you can both have
in their own little worlds are perfect. Yeah. Yeah, look what happened with Game of Thrones. They stuck to the books in the first 5-6 seasons, and when they couldn't stick to the books anymore, it fell off a cliff.
Yeah. So, book adaptations are always tricky to do anyway, because there's going to be that section of people that are just like, oh, the book is better.
So my question to you: should I read The Shining? Should I read The Shining
absolutely.
and then read Dr. Sleep?
Do you like Stephen King?
Yes.
Read The Shining then.
Okay.
It's just read it knowing that it's Stephen King's The Shining, not Kubrick's The Shining.
Yeah, because I've always been very curious about the differences. So that's yeah.
Cool. And I mean, it happens with everything King has done, whether it's The Green Mile, whether it's It. I mean, there's whole parts of It that will never be adapted to film and should never be adapted to film.
Yes, I've heard about that as well.
Because
the connection themes. Yeah.
So, it's just what it is. Like, and that's what I love about taking art into different mediums, is take the written word, take the book, adapt it to a visual medium. How are you going to do that? And are you going to keep the same feeling, or are you going to transform it in some way? It's like a cover song. It's like taking an original song and doing a cover version of it. Are you just going to do the song itself, or are you going to give it your own spin? How are you going to do that? Some people are good at doing that and rearranging things and fitting a different style while keeping the feel of the original. Some people change it up completely and make something new out of it, and some people just do a hacky knockoff of what was there. And the same thing happens in movies. You can have great adaptations that very much feel similar to a book. You can have the great adaptations that completely change it. That's Blade Runner. And then you can have just the crappy, hacky, well, we tried to do this and we just did a bad job of it.
The Relic is another one of those in my mind.
That's a great choice. The Relic is
great book, amazing book, really bad movie. Mm-hmm. Although I guess I'm being the douchey guy that says the book was good, the movie wasn't. I just don't think the adaptation was failed in their part.
Sure, absolutely. No, that happens quite a bit. I mean, and I see it a lot with, like, say, a video game adaptation where you get something that actually has a story behind it, and they adapt a video game poorly. I'm not talking about like Super Mario Brothers or Street Fighter where they didn't have the story to begin with, and they were just drunk or high the whole time. I'm talking like some of the newer stuff, like Silent Hill is a good example where the game has a really interesting story. The movie itself is not terrible. But you can't compare the two. You have to look at it as an adaptation. That's my big thing. Just look at what it is. Take the thing that you're watching and realize that it's something different from what was originally there. That doesn't make it worse. It just makes it different. Now that it can be poorly done, and I'm fine with that. But this whole, like, I just get tired of the book was better from, I know people that will say that literally about anything that's adapted from a book. And it just drives me crazy. So there's that.
And a lot of times the book will always be better because it's in your own brain, for God's sake.
Sure. With horror, especially.
Yeah.
With something designed to scare you, a book is going to do a better job of it.
Yes.
I love the stories of H.P. Lovecraft. The man himself was a little problematic, but the stories are very, very interesting. It's hard to adapt because so much of that is in your head.
Yep.
And your imagination's always going to be scarier than what someone can show you on a screen.
Yep, absolutely. Now, my cheeky 5-word review is simply Rose the Hat. Yes, please.
Oh gosh, and ever since the Greatest Showman, I don't know what it is about her. She is on my list.
Yeah.
Oh, Rebecca Ferguson is phenomenal.
She is gorgeous. She is just gorgeous, and it's not like this weird. Anyway, I could go on for a while talking about how gorgeous this woman is, but yeah. I enjoy watching her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's one of my favorite things of the newer Mission Impossible movies.
Yes, what I was going to say. That's the first place I noticed her was in Mission Impossible 5. And, she's all sexy with her dress and her flute gun and things like that. And then so when she shows up in the Greatest Showman, which Sam mentioned, it really threw me for a loop because we bought the soundtrack. And so we're listening to the soundtrack as my wife and I are driving. And the little screen, it'll pop up who's singing, And, so it's like Zac Efron and Hugh Jackman are doing the duet, and Zac Efron and Zendaya are doing the duet. And then her part comes on and it says Lauren Allred. And I was like, wait, that's not her name. That's not her. And so then I had to research and find out that she didn't actually do her singing part. She didn't feel, she's a singer, but she felt like the person that's supposed to be this world breaking, best singer of her generation, she didn't think she could hack it. So they had someone, she just, overdubbed it. I just thought it was cool that we shared the same last name as the good singer, the one that actually did the voice. But yeah, no, Rebecca Ferguson's great. She's really good in this, and she's creepy and
yes,
and sexy and terrifying, and
she's alluring and frightening at the same time. Like you can't help but be drawn in by her, and yet you're just like covered in flop sweat the whole time because you don't know what's going to happen to you.
Yeah, you don't know if she's going to invade your mind and find all your dirty things, or if she's just going to simply stab you in the face. Like, you just don't know.
Yep. And either one, fine. Go ahead. I don't care.
As long as she's the last thing you see, right?
There you go.
Okay. I do want to mention, you mentioned, I'm going to do my 5-word here in just a second, but you kind of alluded to it earlier about having poor marketing on this movie. So this was a $45 million budget, and it made...
Wait, that's it? $45 million was it?
It's amazingly small budget for what's on screen.
You have to think there's not a lot to cost. You know what I'm saying? There's some locations, but there's no CGI. Not really.
I didn't realize that.
Well, no, there is, because the elevator blood scene, that's all digital.
That's all digital. It was a digital shot so that it would be from her perspective, because the original shot is from the perspective of Danny. So, but I mean,
honestly, that looks amazing. Like,
oh yeah. Oh no, it looked great. And there was... obviously the flying scene when she's flying over, that's a little bit of green screen happening. But I mean, for the most part, the movie, there's very little special effects. There's, it's just a lot of people talking about stuff. So yeah, $45 million makes sense. But it only made $72 million.
And some of that has got to be the marketing. I think it came out in November, which is not a great time for scary movies at all, because November is between, like, October is a great release month for scary movies. December is a decent release month for just about anything because so many people are home for Christmas and they're going to go see movies and whatnot. Yeah. November is not great. And then on top of that is November of 2019, which means it can't even have long legs in the theater because a couple months later, everything's getting closed down.
Yeah.
Yep.
So poor marketing did not help this at all either, because like you said, it was... Is it a sequel? Is it sort of a sequel to the movie? Is it sort of a book? Like, and they didn't play that part enough.
And I'm a dude that watches trailers and enjoys the experience of, what's coming out next. And I remember seeing this, saying, oh, Ewan McGregor's in a thing. Oh, this is kind of cool. But I didn't know I never got the idea that he was Danny Torrance from The Shining. And I honestly don't know, because 2019 was the year we did The Shining for the podcast. So it would have been very fresh in my mind specifically. Like, this movie came out actually at a great time for me to go watch it, and I had really no interest in seeing it because I didn't know what it was. So it's... Well,
and obviously, The Shining's not in the title, right? I remember
that too.
Although how cheesy would it be? The Shining, Dr. Sleep. Or, The Shining 2, it just, I don't know if that would have worked. But
no, that's the hard part, right? Is like, how do you can't make it The Shining 2, especially with that large of a gap in between the movies, 30, almost 40 years. Yeah. And the book that it's based on was just called Dr. Sleep. But they should have, there just should have been more telling you who Ewan McGregor is playing, or show Carl Lumbly as Dick Halloran more. But I mean, on top of the fact that that dude should just be in everything all the time anyway. But the marketing for this didn't give you a sense of what you were getting into. And and there just wasn't enough of it, in my opinion. So it's sad because this movie should have made a ton of money just based on the nostalgia factor for The Shining alone, and they should have played into that a lot more.
Totally agree.
Yeah, I could totally see a trailer with even just the overlook and the music, and then flashes of some of the the Rosie the Hat, not Rosie. Oh, is it Rosie? Rose the Hat, and but just keep going back to the hotel and back to the hotel, and I think that would have served much better purpose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Than what they did.
Well, so I literally have on my other computer here the trailer showing. And this is the trailer that I remember watching. And it's only scenes of him at the Overlook.
Oh, really?
And that's what I think is what turned me off, because I thought, the whole movie is just him going back to the Overlook. Like, why do we need to go back? Because I thought that it was like he was a reporter or he was investigating the Overlook.
Right, not really knowing who he's playing, who this character is that you're seeing.
Yeah, so like right now, it's 40 seconds into the trailer, and it's showing him in the part where he's still kind of the alcoholic, whatever, and he's, now he's talking to the wall with the chalk, right? But I still don't understand what's happening, and now that then they just show the girl, like, so, it's bad. I think it's just a little bit of bad marketing, but.
Yeah. Well, and the story ended up being between the girl and Ewan, and their relationship and how The Shining actually worked. And I wanted more of that. Yeah. I wanted more of The Shining and that version of The Shining and how it worked, how they were getting into each other's minds. And, it was almost Matrix style fighting that they were having to do between them. And I just enjoy the heck out of that.
Yeah. I'm with you on that.
Yeah. All right. So let me do my 5-word, because I'm really excited to talk about the girl and her powers. And I'll say this. I'm going to tease it, and then I'll do my 5-word. So what the movie doesn't do, there's a trope, this movie has, or I guess maybe the story does too, is, Ewan McGregor is he has the power, but he's he's hid it away with alcohol over the years. But the movie kind of reminds you that, and I don't know if the Shining book did this, but in this version of Danny, he's actually really good at it. I mean, he's talented. He's got way more power than I think he even realizes until towards the end of the movie when shit gets real. But I love the fact that the girl is just so above everyone else on the playing field, to the part that there's a couple of times where the bad guys, because usually the bad guys have all of the power, and that's what makes it. It's always good having to overcome the evil because the evil is more powerful. She brushes these guys off like they're nothing, and the only reason why she gets caught was because of the real world scenario stuff, not in the Matrix, so to speak, in The Shine, that stuff. I loved the fact that this 13-year-old girl kicks ass. So okay.
Oh yeah.
Well, it breaks those tropes, right? It takes the tropes that we're used to and twists them in a way that makes it fun.
Yeah, I loved that. I really did. So here's my silly one. The Jean Grey origin story.
Watch out for Phoenix.
Yeah, that's good. And my other one is, and I don't usually do two. Sam knows this. I don't usually have two, but I was in a mood last night, or 2 nights ago, when I watched this. Best Stephen King novel, I'm using the word novel, adaptation.
Oh, wow.
This is now my favorite Stephen King novel movie adaptation, period. Done.
Wow.
It's like...
Yeah, because you have to take out the short stories. You got to take out Shawshank.
I take out Shawshank.
What was the other one I was thinking of just now? I think The Mist was a short.
I've not seen The Mist.
Okay.
But I'm putting it over movies like The Green Mile, which is a great film. It is a great film, but I'm putting this over, The Green Mile, and what's the other one that it doesn't feel like a Stephen King one? I can't think of it. Crap. Anyway.
Sense and Sensibility.
Sure.
Stand By Me?
Maybe, yes. Yeah, Stand By Me. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah, no, I get that.
I loved this movie. I loved it so much. I mentioned at the beginning, I had no expectations of what this movie was going to be.
Yeah.
And I was expecting a little bit more horror elements. And I was very confused at the beginning when Rose is with that little girl, and all of a sudden there's these creepy people there. And then you're not shown, you just kind of learn, you just kind of figure out like, oh, they killed her. And they did something to her.
Oh, yeah.
So these are not good people. And then the little girl, and Abra, as a little girl who's at her own birthday party is like, oh, I can do that trick with the spoons. And then all of a sudden mom and dad walk in and there's 38 spoons on the ceiling. And she just thinks it's funny. And so we're world building a little bit. And then we see Danny and he's still having, the conversation he has with the new actress that is playing his mom she looked great. It was the perfect cast. She looked like she could have been the daughter of the lady. I can't remember her
Shelley
name.
Duvall.
Shelley Duvall. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like she looked so much like her. And the gentleman that they got to play Dick was, he looked like Scatman Carruthers. He looked so good.
Yeah, honestly, like I said, Carl Lumbly should be in everything. But if you can't get Scatman, which unfortunately you can't get him now, he passed away. But like getting Carl Lumbly to be Dick Halloran was a stroke of genius. Like this movie was cast so well.
Yes, and they all do so. There was barely. I don't remember bad acting in this movie.
There isn't.
I know. Usually it sticks out like a sore thumb, and I can remember specific scenes that didn't work, that it just didn't coalesce. But holy crap, did they act their butts off?
Even little kid
the kids
Danny
too.
Little kid Danny was so good. I thought
he was great. Ewan McGregor, Rebecca Ferguson, we've already talked about, but even Carl Strucken as Grandpa Flick. It's great to see Lurch still getting work.
Yeah.
So I'm always happy about that.
He's the Moon Man, whatever he's called.
Yeah. Well, he was Lurch in the Addams Family.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's great. Like, I love that guy and everything, whether he's Mr. Holm in Star Trek Next Generation or, playing a mute character here, gets to talk. Like, he was great. Even a small part, like Barry the Chunk, is not in it a whole lot, but Robert Longstreet killed it with that character for the short time he gets to do it. Cliff Curtis, Billy. I love Cliff Curtis. I will watch him in anything. Like he's one of those guys I love to see because he's always doing something unique or interesting to me in a movie. Mm-hmm. But the kid that I want to talk about,
Cliff Curtis,
is Jacob Tremblay, who played Baseball Boy.
Oh yeah, we got to talk about
because
crap.
Holy hell, that scene is hard to watch, and then. You get this from, according to director Mike Flanagan, and I looked this one up. Yeah. The first take of that scene, Jacob Tremblay was so intense in it that he scared everybody on set. He was traumatizing the adult actors, and when they called cut, he just hopped up, covered in fake blood, went over and high-fived his dad, and was like, grab something from the snack table.
Yeah, he went and got like an ice cream or something. Yeah.
After doing a scene that literally, according to the director, left the rest of the cast shell-shocked and traumatized. Like, Rebecca Ferguson couldn't get her lines out in that first take because the kid just went for it. And I love that story.
If you watch that scene and you aren't not only completely engrossed, but completely horrified, because this scene is a parent's worst nightmare, and it's a kid's worst nightmare. It's straight out of the genius of Stephen King, I would think. But if you can't relate to that in some deep level, I don't know if you're a human. The kid's face, and when she initially stabs him, and he's gurgling blood, it's just, oh my gosh! Like I said, I'm gonna have nightmares tonight from that scene. Well, it's gonna haunt me.
Because a death scene in a movie is already going to be something, and when it's a kid, it's amped up even more, right? Because the innocence of a kid, and the kid can't fight back, and he's being held down by everybody, and this kid actor is just nailing it. The fear on his face is real, and the fact that his first words in the scene after just doing nothing but screaming is, "Are you going to hurt me?" And her response is, "Yes."
Yeah.
She doesn't try to soothe him or calm him in any way. She wants him afraid. And that is so much more powerful. Because it's really, I mean, for a horror movie, the horror elements in this are very focused and very directed to a few specific moments. But that one is so horrifying and so, like, I've seen it now. This was my third time watching through the movie, and it's still difficult to watch that scene.
Yeah,
it's so well done. And for them, and for then, the end of it to be all of them just swarming on him to get that the steam is just, it's like, it makes my skin crawl every time. Yeah, it's so well done.
Yeah,
and then to know that this is what they're doing, right? There's a reason why they're nomads. There's a reason why they're in RVs. They're going around finding these kids and purposely finding kids to feed off of like this, and it makes them that much scarier because they just can't be stopped.
Well, the crazy thing is, like, okay, the 15-year-old girl, Snakebite, what's her face? Like, she's just in on this, right? She's brand new to it, and she jumps in 2 feet first. Like, she has zero problems. Hey kid, I got candy in the van. Let's go, right? Like, she's in it. She doesn't care, But, think about, like, Grandpa Lurch, who has been doing it since, like, the ancient Romans or something. I mean, like, if you kind of think about is how many children has he murdered over the years, over the decades, over the centuries.
And murdered like they murdered the baseball kid. Yeah. I mean, and it just makes your heart hurt.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
It's hard to think about.
It's absolutely horrifying, and it's so effective. Yep. It's so effective to make you not like the characters you're seeing on screen, but also afraid of the characters you're seeing on screen, and then you're happy to see whatever becomes of them later on.
When they start getting shot down, I was
not expecting that. I just, for some reason, it felt so, again, anti-trope. Because I knew it was going to be a trap. They said it. They saying we're setting a trap. And so you knew that. And so when they go to the place and she stabs the little girl in the neck, Abra, and then it turns out that's her bunny rabbit, and they all turn around and all of a sudden there's a gunshot. I thought, oh, I mean, he mentioned the deer. Like, you get the payoff with, he sets up that he was a hunter. But they just freaking sniped these guys and
did it well.
And they did it well. And of course, the note that I wrote was like, when did Danny Torrance learn how to shoot? I mean, that's a perishable skill, right? Like, I don't know, between his drunken benders and sleeping with random chicks, like, he learned how to shoot a rifle.
That was another rough scene too.
So Single moms with the kid.
Yeah, let's talk about
at the beginning. Like, that's oh man, that was tough because you got to figure at that point in Danny's life, he's so low. He's done nothing but just drink and try to forget what happened to him because he was so traumatized. You brought up how Abra embraces her power and is, like, more powerful than everybody and goes for it. And the thing is, Abra was not brought up to necessarily, she hides her shine from her parents because she wants to, because she doesn't want them to think her as being weird or different. Yeah. But Danny didn't have that choice because Danny, at a younger age, at the age we originally meet Abra at, was going through horrifically traumatizing events. Yeah. And so all he wants to do is forget that. And he wants nothing to do with The Shining. And he basically uses it to try and get rid of the trauma by trapping all the ghosts that come after him after Dick Halloran teaches him that. But that's it. And then you get, our first introduction basically to adult Dan Torrance is him waking up next to a woman who he doesn't even realize is actually dead at that point. And then for him to, as he's leaving, he sees the kid there.
Was she dead? Was she dead?
Yeah, so here's
I must have missed that.
Yeah, how that all played out is she's dead in the bed, but he doesn't realize it yet. When he goes to leave, he sees the kid, gives the kid food, and puts him on the bed. The ghost that visits Dan later,
with the dead kid,
that's her saying they haven't found us yet because she is such an absent mother that the people in her building are used to hearing the kid cry, so they don't do anything about it anymore. So,
oh, dude, that makes it that much worse.
It's so much worse.
Because he does see the dead kid,
Yeah.
which means the kid is dead too now.
Mhm.
Holy crap. Oh.
Which, by the way, was the only effect in the movie that I don't think worked as well, was the child face.
It's an
very doll-like.
It's an
but
animatronic baby.
That's hard to do. Like, I'm not going to slag on the movie for that because that's a tough one to pull off. But oh man, that scene is so rough because it's when you realize, oh, she was dead the whole time.
Holy cow! And that was the flies that he mentioned. But okay, now I've made the connection. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I took it differently, but you saying it makes more sense, and I think, you know, having the sight of having seen the movie multiple times, you kind of pick on that, because I figured she died later. Like, I just assumed that
when you look at it, if you watch it again, realize when he gets up, there's the pile of throw up next to her. She basically choked on her own vomit in bed next to him, and he didn't even realize it. He was because at that point, his shining, he had been drinking so much and cocaine or whatever else he was doing the night before, that he had dulled his shine.
Well, he had it enough in the morning that Dick showed up and said, "You're going to take from her? She's got a baby." And he goes, "Well, I'll leave a little bit or something." And then that's when he puts the kid with the food on her bed.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I mean, wow, if he knew she was dead.
Well, if he would have known, then he would have called the cops. You know, you just pick up a phone, you dial 911.
It's the fact that he didn't realize she was dead.
Yeah.
And just thought, well, I'll leave her here. When she wakes up, she'll take care of baby and whatever. And then finding out after the fact when her ghost visits him.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
It's rough stuff. It is. I mean, it also kind of, it helps with the character development of Danny, because you said it, he's as low as he can go, and he spends the next, 8 years kind of bringing peace to people as they die.
Yep.
At the hospice place, which is, those scenes are just great when he's just sitting next to people and the cat shows up and the guy says, that cat knows when people are going to die. And he says, you need me to go get somebody or get you some medicine. He goes, no, just be here with me. And it was, those were like really kind of these really sweet moments where it's like, these men are, because it's men that we see die, they're by themselves. There's no loved ones nearby. These are people that don't have anyone. So at least Danny can be that for them. He can be that comfort. And so it's kind of Danny's way of making up for all the bad that he has done over the last lifetime, basically.
Yeah. I mean, he got to his lowest point. He spent 8 years building himself back and kind of finding himself again, getting sober, coming to grips with what happened to him as a kid, coming to grips with what happened with his father, helping all these people. And then suddenly out of nowhere, seemingly because he hasn't talked to her in a while, this girl just shows up and is like, hey, I can do the same thing you can do. We've talked before, but now we're meeting face to face and I want to go fight these people. And Danny's like, hell no. Like, I've been down that road and it wasn't fun. I don't want to go again. And basically, and so then she has, between her and Halloran, they've got to kind of build him back up and be like, no, you need to do this, because what you don't want her life to go the way yours did. Yep. Is essentially what Dick Halloran is telling him in not so many ways. Like, you have a debt to pay.
Yeah. Help
this girl out. And he realizes that if he doesn't help her, she's going to end up like him, and he doesn't want that for anybody. So there you get that relationship.
Or she's going to be food. In which case,
or she's going to be food. Exactly.
And in which case, her ghost is going to show up and talk to him, probably, do the same thing. And then he'll have that on his conscience forever, where, the little girl shows up and says, hey, you could have helped me, but you didn't.
Yeah. Another thing I did want to mention, because this is an adaptation part, and again, this is where I think sometimes adaptations can improve something. She calls him Uncle Dan in the movie.
Yeah.
And she does this as a way to be like, that I like how they play it off, where it's like, we shouldn't, if we're sitting here talking, it's going to look weird. Well, just anyone asks, you're my Uncle Dan. In the book, he literally is her Uncle Dan. In the book, Jack Torrance had an affair before the events of The Shining with that girl's grandmother, and so her mom was Danny's half sister. So he literally is Uncle Dan in the book, and I think it works better not having a familial relationship between those two, personally. So that's another one of those adaptation parts that I think there's nothing wrong with that, and it works probably in the book really well, but there's just something about changing that one little aspect, but keeping parts of it that I think works. Because I think that it feels more like there's more redemption there from Dan if he's helping somebody because of her abilities and because of where her life could go, as opposed to also throwing in the fact that she's related to him. Yeah.
No, I think that's actually a really good point, which I hadn't thought of I didn't know that going into the movie. I read that in the trivia afterwards, that in the book they're actually related. But I do like that. I kind of like that they're not. And yes, it is a little bit of the trope of you have the reluctant hero and you have the young buck that wants to do the right thing, and they have to kind of drag the reluctant hero kicking and screaming.
Sure.
Quite literally in this case, but the trope is it's different enough that we don't you don't like key on the trope and just roll your eyes and go, oh, this is going to be, we're going to have a road trip with the two of them, and it's going to be like Real Steel or any of those other ones where you have the kid and the adult, right?
The plucky kid and the reluctant adult.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, because it's very different in this case because she is his equal when it comes to the shine, if not better. And it's just the fact that she has this great power. She's just in a kid body and with a kid mind. I mean, she's so proud of herself when she traps her. When she traps Rose, she's like,
and that's great because that's how a kid would react.
Yeah,
somebody her age doing that and being like, yeah, I was able to pull that off.
Yeah,
look what I did.
Yeah, exactly.
And I wanted to mention, because you talked about earlier how she's really, really strong, probably stronger than anybody else, and that's not wrong. But at the same time, Rose and the True Knot, they're not weak by any stretch, and in some ways, Rose is stronger than Abra, but Rose doesn't think Abra is as strong as she is. She can't conceive of that. I mean, even with what transpired, with what Abra did to Rose, where, there's a part where she's like, I would have said that's impossible, but she pulled it off. And Crow Daddy saying, well, do we turn her? Do we eat her? And she's like, we can't turn her. We can't have somebody that powerful involved with us. But yet she's still supremely confident in her own abilities enough to think that she can beat Abra and she can beat Dan. She doesn't fully grasp how powerful either of them are. Yeah. And the fact that
she doesn't know Dan
because she doesn't know Dan. She doesn't know what Dan has been through.
Yeah.
So, he's got that on his side, but she is still very powerful. So I loved that there wasn't a clear, this one is more powerful than that. Like there wasn't a rock, paper, scissors thing going on. There was a lot. It was more nuanced than that. Yeah. And I appreciate that because it does give you the sense of like, this could go in any direction.
Yeah. Well, and it stayed away from being another X-Men film, right? Where what happens if Magneto goes against Wolverine, or the Shining and the powers that come with the Shining seem to be different in every single person, but it still revolves around the idea of getting into somebody's mind and being able to communicate with them in some shape or form. Even the pusher girl, it was still getting into somebody's mind and convincing them that what she was saying is the right way to do it. And one thing I would have liked to have seen, I know there wasn't a whole lot of time, but obviously all these other, ghouls, right, had some sort of shining power.
Right.
Otherwise,
we didn't really
they
get
would
to see what they were.
Yeah, and I would have liked to have seen, what Lurch, why he was there. Why was he the first one? I don't know. What was his deal? And I think that would have been fun to explore a little bit more. I do want to talk about one issue I did have in the movie, and that was the issue of the trap where they're shooting them all down, and of course the pusher is the last one alive.
Yeah.
And I knew when she came out that my buddy from Walking Dead, the Fear the Walking Dead, was going to end up shooting himself. It was written on. I mean, you knew exactly what was going to happen, and I wish there would have been some way they could have manipulated that to just end up differently.
It's interesting because,
and it also was such a throwaway. It was like, oh, he's dead. Same thing with her father. It was like, oh, he's dead.
Yeah,
the impact wasn't there.
It wasn't, and some of that is that they changed Billy's character just a little bit, because in the book, from what I remember, and again, I want to read it all the way through, but Billy and the doctor, that's played by Bruce Greenwood early on, the one who has the missing watch and all that, they're both more involved in the end of the book than they are in this. And you're right, they telegraph the fact, like, if you're paying attention at all, great, he's dead. Like, he's not dead. Yeah. And it is a bummer because, again, Cliff Curtis, I'll watch him in anything. But it felt like he's such an important person to Dan.
Yeah.
And his death feels, it lacks some of the weight because we don't get a chance to mourn for him. It goes from that directly to they've still got to deal with Rose and they've got to go to the hotel.
Yeah.
So,
well, not even that. We still have to deal with. We still have to witness her getting kidnapped. Abra getting kidnapped and her dad getting stabbed, and then the result. With Crow Daddy, whatever.
Crow Daddy. Yeah.
Thank you,
Crow Daddy.
Not Lou Diamond Phillips.
Oh, so close. They have to be brothers.
Yeah.
Right.
I've seen that guy in a bunch of stuff. Longmire
he's done
recently. He's in everything. I think it's interesting though. Both of you said this, and I didn't pick up on it. I did not see the shooting himself coming at all. Okay. So when because Ewan McGregor doesn't know her power yet, and so she opens the door and she says, "You're getting tired," and he's resistant to it because he's strong with the Force, and so that only works on the weak-minded, right? It's the same thing.
Yep.
And she has to say it multiple times before it works. And so there was a part of me that thought that he was faking it, and that right when she was going to get in a position where she loses, the surprise, like then he would just pull the gun up and pop her in the head. I thought that was what was going to happen. So then when she gets shot by the buddy, I'm like, oh, okay, that works too. But then it took her so long to die because everyone else died pretty quickly. And when I was like, oh, she's taking a long time to die, that's when I knew that something bad was going to happen. And there's another movie where that kind of thing happens, and I can't think of what it is.
Jessica Jones.
It happened in that.
That thing, you're right. That does kind of happen. Oh, Jessica Jones. That Kilgrave was bad to kids in that movie too, or that show too.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where you're right in that Billy's death and Abra's father's death are somewhat throwaway, and so they lack a little bit of the punch because Abra's dad dies off screen. We don't see him get stabbed. We just see the aftermath of it. Which is, it might be in the director's cut. I don't know. I'd have to, with half an hour more footage, I'm sure they might have had something in there. But you're right. It lacked the weight because we didn't get a chance to then deal with the aftermath of that. This girl loses her dad, and Dan loses basically his best friend, like the really only friend he has other than Abra.
Yeah,
and somebody who got up at 4 a.m. and drove cross country with him to Iowa to look for a buried child because Danny told him that might be there. Like, Billy was all in.
Yeah.
And so I can agree with you in that would be, if I had a problem with anything, it would be that, because it does feel like Billy gets a little bit of short change.
Yeah, he felt like a red shirt.
Yeah.
To me. You knew something bad was going to happen to him.
And I think it's interesting, the movie, don't know about the book, but the movie kind of alludes to he has the shine a little bit too, Billy. Because, Ewan McGregor says, you have a way of telling, people if they're sincere or not. Like, you looked into me and saw something. Like, because he mentions it to Abra in the, I don't know if it was in the clip I played or not, but he talks about how some people have the shine, they just don't know it.
Yeah.
And they don't realize what it is, when you just know to bring flowers home to your wife when she had a bad day. Like that the book is kind of giving you the idea that intuition, that gut feeling that people have, that's the shine. And Billy had that. And unfortunately, what happened.
Yeah.
All right. Gosh, we've talked about so much.
I mean, this movie is so full of those types of moments, though. That talkable moments.
Yeah, and we haven't even.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely, we haven't even talked much about how influenced the film style was from Stanley Kubrick. How much they either staged shots or rebuilt sets. They rebuilt the Overlook Hotel sets with blueprints they had from the original movie. They staged shots to look exactly like shots from the original movie, or updated them like the elevator one to be in line and correct with what they were doing currently. They actually reused a couple of shots from The Shining when they were driving up to the hotel. Those are direct shots from the movie, just changed day for night. They regraded them to be nighttime shots. But those overhead helicopter shots are straight out of the first movie. The musical motifs that they did, like all this kind of stuff that they were doing to give you that feel. And there's no jump scares.
There's one.
There is one. A light turning on or something.
No, for me, it was when Danny is looking through the hole that his dad had cut with the axe, and then the camera cuts to Shelley Duvall's. We're seeing her in the movie, and the axe breaks through. That was the only one for me that it was a jump scare. And
fair enough, but like it's not a jump scare in the traditional sense of like horror movie gratuitous jump scares.
Yeah. Because
they didn't want to do that because Kubrick didn't do it in The Shining.
Yeah.
So they weren't going to do it in this movie. Like there's so many of those little nods that I just loved. And it's a testament to Mike Flanagan as a director who has done some stuff that's really good. I mean, he did Oculus, which fun thing was he worked his Oculus mirror into the background of one of the shots in this movie. I thought that was pretty cool. But he did Oculus and Hush. But he directed Gerald's Game.
Yep,
that was him.
Oh wow, okay, all right.
And then Haunting of Hill House. He directed 10 episodes of that series.
Which, by the way, is one of the best series of horror that I have watched in a long time, and it's a lot like the Shining type of horror where it's not going to be jump scare. There will be some, but the story is so well done in The Haunting of Hill House. It's just, and that was the 8th episode. That was the long shot episode. I can't remember what it was, but it was like 3 shots. Right, there was only 3 shots in the entire episode, or 3 cuts, and it's just brilliant. It's just. I can't say enough about that, and I might actually have to revisit that here.
And I didn't realize he directed 7 episodes of Midnight Mass, which I'm hearing a lot of good things about right now. And now he's got in pre-production. I see a Fall of the House of Usher, which is going to be another TV miniseries, probably a Netflix series. And I'm all in for that because that's another good one.
Is that going to be in the line of Hill House? I know it was Hill House and Bly Manor.
I have to assume like so because he was.
It's not about. It's not about the rapper.
He did 1 episode of Bly Manor, so
sure it's not about the R&B guy, the Usher.
Yeah, it's the Fall of His House.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, he's got horror credit to his name, and then he did this, and like I say, it's just there's some really good work in there to do. It never felt like he was trying to copy Kubrick. It felt more like he was paying respect to Stanley Kubrick's style from The Shining while also adapting King. So he was really just, like I said in my 5-word review of it being, for me, a perfect movie and book sequel, meshing those two things so well, pulling elements from both story elements from the book, but visual elements from the movie and taking them together. And it's just really, really good work.
I'm going to use a weird comparison, but to me, it's in a similar vein that that Galaxy Quest is paying homage to Trek. It's
sure, that works.
It feels very that. Some of the things that I wrote down in my notes specifically about the way that the movie was shot is that other than maybe the shootout, there is no shaky cam. This is on sticks. Yes, this is on dollies. I can't tell you how many times, and this felt very King in that, not King, Kubrick, in that there are multiple times where, specifically I remember like Ewan McGregor's in the shot, and then he walks out of frame, and then the camera pans over to pick him back up, and then we see him over here, and then he goes back to where he was, and then the camera goes back the other direction. And there's a lot of just these dolly tracking shots and
Travis, staging of the shots themselves, the very blocky staging.
Yeah.
The singular focus in the background, and it's so well done.
There's very Kubrick in that way. Like Kubrick was, you look at his movies, and it was literally every frame in his movies is like a painting.
It's an art. A lot of ways. Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
He was so meticulous in where everything had to be and how it had to look. And Flanagan did a good job of capturing that, but updating it for a 2019 film. Yep. So he's doing those same ideas, but it doesn't just feel. It's not Gus Van Sant remaking shot for shot Psycho.
Yeah,
it's Mike Flanagan saying, "Here's The Shining. Here's Kubrick, and I'm gonna update that. I'm gonna nod to it. I'm gonna use his ideas." I love that shot where you mentioned, Sean, where it starts off with Danny at the chalkboard, and he walks to the door, and the camera follows him to the door, and then he leaves, and it hangs there for a second, then it slowly goes back over to the chalkboard. Like, there's so many times where shots in this movie were allowed to breathe and marinate a little bit and give you something interesting to look at. So I love that stuff.
I do too. I think it's really great. And to say that this movie is a slow burn, it kind of is a slow burn, but it's not. But it's almost like it's a simmer as opposed to like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
it's not a complete Kubrick slow burn.
Yeah, like The Shining, the pilot light is the only thing on until about the last 20 minutes of the movie, and then it gets cranked to 10. Whereas this movie feels like it's constantly being ratcheted up just a little bit until you get to the end.
And they did some interesting stuff with the heartbeat sound and using that to create and help build the tension, increasing the tempo, decreasing the tempo. So that's going to hit you on more of a subconscious level. You're not going to think about it until you realize, oh, there's a heartbeat going on. But even like the cold open for the movie that starts off with Rose and the little girl, that's such a brilliant way to start this movie because you started off with something that is very calm, but also creepy as hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it ends before you see anything. So now your imagination is running wild with like, what are they doing to that girl? What are those people? What is happening there? And now we go off and we're gonna deal with Dan for a little bit. And we're gonna come back to this group of people later.
And the girl's not there.
It's a great way to kick things off.
Well, and all the great horror, it's all about what you don't see,
and
it's all about what your mind creates, and they just do that so well in this. It's just great.
So a couple of notes I have before we move on to some of our other sections, because otherwise we're going to spend as long as the movie is talking about the movie. Because there's just so much to get into. There really is, and I'm glad. And Travis, you teased something off air. I'm going to give you an opportunity to, unless you have already done it. I'll give you an opportunity because you said you had a soapbox you wanted to pull out.
I that was my book and movie.
Oh, that was the book and movie thing, soapbox.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that was me getting on my soapbox and ranting a little bit about.
Oh, no, you're fine.
The book was better.
Yeah, but it was. I'm just teasing. I laughed out loud, belly laugh when she's doing the bit where she's been kidnapped by the crow, and Danny is now driving her body. And they're talking back and forth, and they're having this, and she does such a great job of acting like Ewan McGregor, like acting like a man.
Yeah.
And I thought that was...
I guess from what I read, he acted out the scene for her first.
Yeah.
So that she could watch him.
Oh, wow.
And then use that to inform her performance, and that's brilliant.
And it's really great, It's stuff like that is like when... This is such a random nod. Sam will, of course, roll his eyes a little bit. But like in the movie Serenity, which is my favorite film, the scene where Malcolm Reynolds, Nathan Fillion, is talking to... my brain. I can't believe I just blanked on this. My favorite film, I can't think of the character's name. The prostitute. My gosh, I can't think of the companion.
Inara.
Wow. I had Summer in my head, and that's not right. when they're having that conversation with Nora, she's just on the other side of the wall. They're acting together in the shot so that they can play off each other and have this kind of funny moment. And then they just add the cut scenes with the screen post, because we never see Mal and the screen at the same time very much. It's kind of, Anyway, I just like that kind of thing where a filmmaker says, you need to act against the other person. It's the same thing we've argued with the prequels. It's okay to act with a puppet of Yoda. The fact that they're acting against a tennis ball is, why it feels, it feels cold. Yeah.
And that's why what's happened with filmmaking the pendulum swung so far to everything being CG, and we're swinging back to where everything is CG still. You look at a Marvel movie, and 80% of that frame is built in post.
Yeah.
But the stuff that they're acting against, the motion capture, especially,
it's still
has
Sean
come so
Gunn
far
sitting there
that you
pretending
can have,
to be a raccoon.
Yeah, you can have Mark Ruffalo on set, even if it's the Hulk that is being dealt with, or whoever's playing, Josh Brolin is there, even though you're never going to see Josh Brolin. It's just Thanos.
Yeah.
It gives people something to act off of instead of just
there's
tennis ball and a stick.
There's a
dragon.
Yeah, exactly. There's a great piece of trivia when they had Blacklist actor
James Spader
for Ultron. So he's wearing the harness and it has his eyes up top, but Olsen kept looking at his eyes as he's acting, because she was so kind of enamored with what he was doing that Joss Whedon kept saying, you need to look up. Like Spader keeps like pointing, like, you got to look up because I'm 7.5 feet tall.
In her defense, though, if I'm being talked to by James Spader, I'm going to be looking in his eyes. Well,
sure, he's an intense man.
Yeah,
very much so,
and a little dreamy. So so I belly laughed in that car crash. And when he flew out that window,
I love it.
That kind of goes to something we've talked about. It might have been before we recorded, of setups and payoffs.
Yeah,
because when she first wakes up, she notices that he's not buckled in, but you're not paying attention to that as the viewer. You're seeing him
for the gun.
You're seeing him reach to the gun holster. She's seeing that, but then the second time they show it, same movement by him, but now you've seen that she's buckled in and he's not, and Danny, controlling her, notices that, and he uses it to his advantage. It's such a great setup and a great payoff, and it's such a well done scene, because I love how Crow Daddy, he figures out pretty quickly that she's not who she's not herself, and it's somebody else controlling her. And he just it just rolls off his back. He's like, oh, that's a new one. I haven't seen that before. Yeah. He's so calm about it, because the True Knot are so confident in their abilities, and they're so confident in what they can do, that they just don't think anyone can beat them, because no one has for however long they've been around.
And Danny, through her, says it in the scene, you are very arrogant. And he's like, why do you say that? And he's like, but of course you're arrogant, because you can live forever. That's why you didn't put on your seatbelt. And then does the thing. And then it's that aerial shot, not aerial shot, but it's a top down shot. And when they hit that tree and he goes flying out like a, like a t-shirt out of a cannon.
Like a torpedo.
Yeah. I laughed. I laughed out loud. I had to pause the movie. And my wife, who watches these with me, but she didn't really watch this with me. Once the baseball kid scene started to happen, I told her to stop watching. I said, because she was working on she had some other stuff she's working on. I said, you got your headphones in? And she said, no. I said, put your headphones in. Don't watch. This is going to give you nightmares. And so she just kind of checked out of the movie for a little while. But when that scene happened, I was laughing so hard. She's like, what in the world could possibly be that funny in this movie? And I'm
Someone got their comeuppance.
So I rewound it a little, like, you got to watch this scene. And of course it happened again. And I'm still laughing. And she's like, I mean, it's kind of funny, but not what you're doing. And I'm like, believe me, if you would have been on this emotional ride with me, like, this was a release.
This was a payoff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then the next release, my favorite, maybe not favorite, but one of my favorite moments of acting between Abra and Rose is when Corporeal Rose is there, right? With the glowy eyes. and Rose sees her and she calls her a bitch, right? And then Abra walks through her like she doesn't matter, right?
Yep.
Like just walks through her, and then
it's so good. It's just
so
the
great.
15-year-old version of flipping her off and just walks through her and keeps going. It's great.
Doesn't pay her a no, never mind. Last few things we mentioned, really good casting. The bartender they got to do Jack Nicholson looked. I mean, there's a little bit of makeup, and they put a wig on him. And there's, I think, something in the trivia that he watched The Shining for like 100 times so he could mimic Jack's movements for the scene.
By the way, you know who that was, right?
I don't. Not off the top of my
Henry.
head.
That was Henry Thomas. You might know him from a little movie called E.T.
What?
No,
he played Elliot.
Right. No,
he's Elliot.
He's in the haunted house on
Haunting of
Hill House,
Bly Manor.
Yeah, Bly Manor and all that.
And Hill
stuff.
House. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Dreamcatcher and Gerald's Game. He's in Gerald's Game. Everybody's in Gerald's Game.
But
so this is another one of those cases where this director and this group seem to do a lot of stuff together.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
you as a director, you find some actors you work well with. Like most of the, I think it was Rose and Crow Daddy were like the only members of the True Knot that weren't in Gerald's Game.
Or in something
I think the rest
else.
of them were, or somehow related. Like
they were all
one
part
of the. One of them was his brother, was Jack Flanagan, Mike's brother was one of the members. So, I get that. I kind of like when a director has, the stable of people that they like to have show up in a movie.
Yeah, I mean, James Cameron has his guys. Freaking
Scorsese
has his guys.
Scorsese's got his guys.
Interstellar Man, what's his name?
Nolan.
He has his crew, and Tim Burton. They all, it's all kind of incestuous, and that's fine. It's just when Bruce Greenwood showed up, I was like, oh, hey, you're alive. You're not naked and dead. That's good. And
by the way, the Greenwood's only got like 2 or 3 scenes.
Yeah.
But his scene where he hires Dan, I love the fact that office is a exact carbon copy of the office where Jack got hired to go to the Overlook in The Shining. Right down to the color on the walls.
Yeah.
Like, watch it again, you'll realize. Because I remember when I was first watching this movie, my first thought was like, God, that looks like the same room. And then I'm realizing they made the same damn room.
Yeah.
Like, right down to where they put the flag on his desk. Like, all that is basically a carbon copy. It was so cool. That's another one of those little touches that I just love. Plus, Bruce Greenwood. This movie's full of people I'll watch in anything. Between Bruce Greenwood, Cliff Curtis, and Ewan McGregor. Like, and they show up in something, I'm watching it. I just can't help myself.
Absolutely. And you have now read 90% of my trivia. So there you go.
I'm good at that.
That's good because our runtime is running
we're
long.
We're fine. What's an hour and a half amongst friends?
That's right.
The last couple of things I'll notice was it was really clever putting her in the maze as a mind trap. I thought that was really clever. And then the payoff at the end, I knew it was going to happen. Yes, it was kind of telegraphed. I knew at some point the boxes, Ewan McGregor's boxes, his mind boxes were going to get opened, and he was going to weaponize them. I knew that was going to happen, but I love the scene when she's, she thinks she has him. Again, it's that arrogance, right? She thinks she has him. She thinks that even though she's inflicting pain, that his mind is gone. And then when he turns the switch, because once she finds them, she has to know what it is, right? It's like, again, it's that arrogance, like, oh, if he's hiding it, then it must be something I need. And then when he says what he says, and then just boom, there it is.
So good.
I'm kind of with you a little bit, Sam. It would have been kind of neat to see her suffer a little bit more. I don't know. I don't know. It would have been kind of cool to see her get terrorized a little bit, or maybe she gets chased around the hotel for a minute.
I could have appreciated that, but I love the fact that like Dan realized I can't beat her by myself. As strong as we are, we probably can't do it. But I know something that might be able to. Like his whole thing of it's dangerous for people like us. Maybe it is for her too. And his line when he releases them is just great. Yeah. Like it's so good.
And I promise you, I captured that. My last note that I'm going to mention before we do need to move on is that, again, I've only watched The Shining the one time, and it's well documented how much I loved that film. But, and I mentioned last week, Sam, and Sam will either deny us or confirm it, but I did say that I was hoping that this movie might inform the way that I viewed that movie. And the one thing that I never thought about when I was watching The Shining the first time was that the hotel is alive. Mm-hmm. And this movie paints it that the hotel is a thing. It is a living, breathing thing that needs to feed and can be killed. And I never thought of it in the first movie as that. I always thought of it as Jack just goes crazy. Yeah. He just goes crazy. I never thought of it as ghosts. Again, Danny's the only one that sees the twins, but Jack sees everything else, and I just assumed that was his psychosis. Like he was just losing his mind. That none of it was real. None of it was real. The bartender, the lady ghost in the shower, like none of that stuff was real actually happening. It was all in Jack's head to inform us, the viewer, of how crazy he's gotten.
And that's where the book is going to be something really interesting for you because it's more of that aspect of things than it is what Kubrick did.
Yeah. So that kind of excites me to think about. Oh, the house is a thing. The house is alive. The hotel. I mean, not the house, but the hotel is a character in this thing. Yeah. Because in this movie, the hotel kind of turns into the big bad at the end. It's almost the enemy of my enemy is my friend trope. Kind of a thing.
Basically, yeah.
It's kind of like using the Reavers to kill off the.
Yep, there you go. Bringing it full circle.
Such a great. Look at Sam doing it. Oh my gosh! Actually, you know what, Sam? I'll even help you out. It's like using the T-Rex to fight the crazy dinosaur at the end of Jurassic World.
There you go.
It's the exact same thing. Only in that case, the
Indoraptors were Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah,
I was talking about
Indominus Rex.
Indominus Rex, yes, that one.
I knew I'd get there eventually.
Yeah, and it's, and I do like that movie, and I do like how at the end of the fight, and the big sea creature has taken Indominus Rex under, and then the raptor Blue and the T-Rex literally nod to each other like, "We good? Yep. All right, dog, I got you." And then, and then Blue looks over at.
It's so true. It's exactly what happened.
Yeah,
they get the bro nod.
Yeah,
and they take off.
We good? Yeah, it would. I would have probably rolled my eyes more if the T-Rex would have then looked over at Star-Lord and done the same thing. Like, hey, I'm tired. I'm going to go take a nap.
We're good now.
Right? We're good.
Yeah, we're good.
Give him a little thumbs up with the little hand. All right.
By the way, Sean, you still need to go see Room 237 on Netflix, the documentary. I think you'll gain a greater appreciation of The Shining by looking into some of the crazy theories that are out there about what the reason why Kubrick did what he did.
Here's the thing, though. My absolute first note. My absolute second note. My first note was, hey, that's the lady from Mission Impossible. The second note. I guess this movie disproves the theory that Danny is the bad guy. Because there's that theory that floats out there that if you look at The Shining as Danny is the villain, in that his dad, though abusive, he needed to find a way to get rid of his dad, and this was the way to do it. And organize, Danny is the one that sets it all up with The Shining. Danny is the one that uses the shine to make his dad go crazy. That's that fan theory. And when I heard it, I'm like, oh, that's actually kind of makes the movie more fun for me. But obviously, this movie says no.
So I do have a question for you. After watching this,
yeah,
do you either have a better appreciation for The Shining, or B, an urge to rewatch The Shining with new eyes?
I have more of an urge to read the books than to rewatch the movie. And I probably will rewatch the movie at some point because we got done watching it, and I looked at my wife and I said, I do kind of want to watch it with her because I didn't watch it with her the first time. And she just kind of gave me a look and she said, why? And I said, I think it would help me watching it kind of with you through, like, you don't know anything about that movie at all except what scenes we saw from Ready Player One. And so it'd be interesting to see, to kind of watch it again, knowing what I know now and whatever. So I do want to watch it again, not anytime soon. But I am eager to kind of get into the book, though I have to finish the Dark Tower series. I have been reading the Dark Tower series, and by saying reading, doing the audiobook, and it's been about 8 months since I picked up an audiobook to do it. So, time for this. I have some clips. I have a few clips.
2 hours later.
2 hours later, we're playing clips. That's fine. Whatever. Here we go. Push.
Here's the deal. Snake bite, Andy. You're a pusher. You can push people. We haven't had a push around here for a little while, so I'm going to offer you a deal I haven't offered anyone in almost 40 years.
I captured that clip specifically because we watched the movie Push, which is the same thing. The movie Push is, you can subject someone else, you can put an idea into someone else's head and make them do things, suggest things. And I thought that was interesting. It almost made me think, did King get the idea of that from that storyline, or is that storyline an old trope that when you push someone, you're pushing an idea into their head, and then they created a comic book which would lead to the movie?
Hard to say because he wrote. I mean, the book was published in 2013, I think. Yeah. Dr. Sleep. Yeah. So,
well, the movie came out. The movie Push came out in 2009, and the comic book.
So it's hard to say what's chicken and egg, right?
Yeah. Well, I think it's more like where did the comic book get it from? I guess is my question. Is there something else in Stephen King's repertoire that uses that phrase? Because he recycles so much stuff subtly, right? And we're going to talk about that in a second because it's a widely known fact that kind of everything is in the same universe, in the Stephen King universe. Like they're all kind of connected, and everything relates back to the Dark Tower. And I think that's great, and we'll get to that in just a second. I love this line. I think this is great. I know that my church-going friends might not like this line, but I think this is great.
Our beliefs don't make us better people. Our actions make us better people.
I love that line. I just think it's great. I think it's
that's a good one.
Very poignant.
I'm with you on that.
I can't remember what this one is. I think this is Bruce Greenwood talking. I think I just wanted to capture Bruce Greenwood saying words.
Do dying people bother you?
No. We're all dying. The world is one big hospice with fresh air.
That's what it was. I like that line too.
One big hospice with fresh air.
It's kind of sad, but I liked it. Okay. Here's our first mention. Actually, it's not its first, but this is the first saying anything out loud, making reference to the Dark Tower.
I'm here because it all comes round. Car's a wheel, Doc.
So, Sam, you don't know what that means, right?
I don't know.
So, K-A, Ka is a wheel. Ka is described in the trivia as destiny. That's a very limited meaning of what Ka is in the scheme of the Dark Tower. Ka it's more than destiny. It's like a force. It's like the force. Yeah. It's an unbreakable vow. It's both magic and real and all of those things and destiny, but it's not. So there's some of the trivia mentions. Like there's lots of trivia talking about the Dark Tower and how it's all connected. Like the bus line that brings him to the little town in New Hampshire is called Tet Travels or Tet Bus. Yep. The word Tet, T-E-T, is also a meaning in the Dark Tower. A Ka-Tet is the group that's what their group is called. Tet meaning group and Ka meaning the destiny or the whatever. Mm-hmm. And so That's what that means. That's what that homage is. So I just when I heard that Ka is a wheel, and I thought, oh man, because it's the same thing when we did Gerald's game, and when she's having a conversation with Bruce Greenwood post death, Bruce Greenwood, and he says the phrase, "Everything follows the beam." I captured it too because it's the same thing. It's again a reference to the Dark Tower. Okay, here's him saying really terrifying things.
You'd be long dead. They eat screams and drink pain. And they've noticed that little girl.
Such a great line. And it's so scary and visceral.
Again, Carl Lumley. Just put him in everything. I don't care what. I don't care if he's doing John Jones' dad in Supergirl. I don't care if he's an old super soldier in Falcon and Winter Soldier. It doesn't matter. Let him be in everything because he's awesome.
He's so good. Just that line of eat screams and drink pain. It's just it's so good. I captured this line because this is an awkward phrase because of it's just an awkward 2 words to say together.
All right, bitch child.
Bitch child. When you have the CH followed by a CH, I don't know if that was written in the script or in the book, but I mean, obviously it was written in the script, but I don't know if that was in the book. But when she said that, I thought, can we take let's say something different. Bitch kid, bitch.
We're gonna go with that one. All right,
bitch child. I mean, she's great, and she says the line in such a way that you're like, she's about to turn it to 11, but it's still bitch child. Okay.
Well, and her accent is really interesting in the whole movie because it's kind of not. It doesn't really fit anywhere, which is fitting of her character. So, but yeah, that one was. It just sounds weird. It's the way those sounds go together. Yeah, it just doesn't quite.
It work. Is. Yeah, it's just a CH followed by another CH. We mentioned it earlier. Here it is.
What are you hiding, huh? What's in those? Something special, huh?
They're not special. They're starving.
I love it. They're starving.
So good.
Yeah.
So good.
And it's great because he takes control of the moment, right? Once it's time to spring the true trap, he physically is able to regain control, even though he had an axe to the leg, right? He pushes her back, regains control, and then releases her, and all of a sudden there's the old creepy ghost lady standing there, and just time to eat.
Mm-hmm. They somebody put their hand under her skin on her face.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Yeah, it was.
Ugh.
It would actually.
She may not have suffered long enough, but boy, was it rough.
It would have been interesting to see, since so much of the torture is in the brain, in the Matrix, right? Like, it would have been interesting to see her get thrown into her mind castle and having the ghosts do stuff to her in her mind, as opposed to physically on the floor inside the Overlook. That might have been.
But at the same time, we've seen the rest of the members of the True Knot die, cycle, as they call it.
Yeah.
In reality, so I kind of get why they went that way.
Yeah, I get it too. Yeah. Anyway, I just want her to have more pain.
Yeah, her suffer more. That's all I want to see. Yeah,
I'm with you.
All right,
on that.
Time for what little trivia I have left.
And now for some more bad news. Ready?
All right. Danny Lloyd, who played the character Danny Torrance in The Shining, makes a cameo in this movie at the baseball game and is listed in the credits as spectator.
Yep.
Oh wow!
I thought that was cool.
He didn't.
Fun fact is that could have been somebody that you and I, Sean, know, which is Brian Ibbett, because he was in the running for that role.
Yeah, one of the podcasts that we both listen to, and Travis has guest hosted on the morning stream. One of the co-hosts was like the last 10 kids to be in that because he's from Denver. So you already mentioned that one and that one, so I'll say this one. There are a few Dark Tower references in the film. The bus line that both Danny and Abra take is called Tet. The baseball player's number is 19. The place where one of the True Knot's victim is killed is called Lamarck Industries. And Dick Halloran refers to Ka when talking to Danny about the karmic debts. Now, there's one more that I think that's not mentioned in any of the trivia, and I'm shocked. And that's the train. The train in the in the playground that's Charlie the Choo Choo. As soon as I saw it on screen, I pointed to my wife and I was like, "That's Charlie the Choo Choo." And fun side story. I did not know this, but in the book, in the Wastelands on the Dark Tower, the kid finds this book at the bookstore, and it's the Charlie the Choo Choo book, right? And so I read the book, whatever. Fast forward 5 months, we're in the middle of the pandemic, which we're still in the middle of, and we go to the public library, where my son goes over to the section and picks a book about trains, and it's the freaking book. I didn't know it was real, that Stephen King put a real book in his story. So when Declan, my son, he pulls it out, he goes, "Hey, look at this." I'm like, oh my gosh, it even says featured in the story of the Dark Tower. And so I asked my son the question that's asked in the Dark Tower, not a spoiler, Sam, if you ever want to read this.
Okay.
I just said, "Hey, Declan, look at the passengers on that train. Tell me what they're feeling." And he looks at me and goes, "Some of those kids look scared, Daddy." And I said, "Yes, they do." And like it just sent chills up my spine, because like that's this big point of the story. Not a big point, but it's a part of the story that the author of this story created this thing, and it's just anyway. But that train is again, it's another reference to another Stephen King thing. And I'm surprised that one, it's not mentioned more in the story, in the movie, and two, it's not mentioned in trivia. But that's fine. All right, time for this.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
Top 3. Well, we did The Shining 2 years ago, and technically we did Haunted Buildings as our top 3. So, we've already done Ewan McGregor movies. We've done psychics. We've done powered people. So we're kind of circling back around, and specifically we're going to do haunted houses, movies that feature haunted houses. So if you think we're cheating, well, you can suck it. That's fine. Sam.
All right. So I obviously have a honorable mention for the Hill House. And the way our lovely, I can't remember his name. Oh, I'm horrible with that. Hid ghosts the entire season. It's a heck of a lot of fun to go back and try to find them and to see how you might have missed them. But definitely Hill House. I've got the Maitland home. Anybody want to venture a guess where the Maitland home is located?
In Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice, right? The Freeling house in Poltergeist, which apparently was a haunted house for real once they started bringing in real skeletons. And then probably one of my favorite scary movies recently is the Perron home in The Conjuring.
I see.
Yeah, those are my top 3.
All right.
Those are good.
Yeah.
I like them.
Travis?
So I have an honorable mention. I'm going to give it at the end of my 3.
Sure.
Okay.
So I have 3. They're not just houses. I do have the Overlook Hotel because
no problem.
It is haunted as hell. It's also based on a real hotel, the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado.
I'd love to go there one of these days.
I would too, just to say I went there. Like that would just be great. But you can't list haunted locations and not have the Overlook Hotel. The second one is actually from an episode of Doctor Who. And it was an episode of Doctor Who called The God Complex, where they are in a haunted hotel or a seemingly haunted hotel because there's rooms changing and doors changing and all this kind of weird stuff going on. And I just remember that episode really well. And I don't even remember what the hotel was called, but it was from the God Complex. It was a Matt Smith Doctor Who episode. And I just really liked, plus they had a really cool like Minotaur alien creature at the end of it. That was neat. And then my third is the Nostromo from Alien.
Oh, okay.
Because that's a haunted house in space. And that ship is such a integral part of why that movie is such a good horror movie. With the way that it was, and it it also was very influential in the design of ships in sci-fi movies moving forward, where they all look like giant basements. So I kind of like that. Now, my honorable mention is a bit of a mashup of the Nostromo and the Overlook, and that's the Event Horizon.
The Event Horizon.
I was wondering if you were going to go there. Yeah. Because let's see some faces melting off.
Well, yeah, because you've got it's the ship, it's in space, but then it's also a living, breathing thing in its own right, much like the Overlook. So it's a mashup of the two, and that's why it gets my honorable mention.
Yep.
Isn't the ship itself named the Event Horizon?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember if the name of the ship was called that or not. Because as soon as you said the one from Alien, I was like, ooh, what was the name of the ship from Event Horizon?
Event Horizon.
Because I was going to add that to my list, but you took it. So the only ones that I have the only one that I have that hasn't been said, because I had Beetlejuice and The Conjuring also, and so I wrote the Grudge is the only other one I did that hasn't been mentioned.
Yeah. That's a good one too.
That was the last movie I saw in the theater that legitimately scared me.
So yeah, I saw that in a theater, and the shot that slowly pans and you hear the sound, and you know what you're going to see. I'm sitting in the theater and I know exactly what this shot is, and it's a slow pan right to left, and then there's going to be the Grudge kid on the stairs because you're hearing that sound. I was trying to crawl out of my seat in the theater, like getting away from the screen. I was just like there was something slowly crawling out. It was the weirdest. It's such a visceral memory for me. Like I was just scooting up my seat trying to get out of the way, and it takes so long for that damn scene. I'm just like, I know what I'm going to see, and I don't want to see it, but I can't stop watching.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that one sticks with me.
The part that got me was when the little boy screamed like a cat.
Yeah, that was
too. Pretty effective for me, and because I was in college at the time of that movie, and my roommate, we lived in a townhome, so we had an apartment above us, and my roommate, he had a black cat. So my wife, my then girlfriend, now wife, we get back to the apartment and we're getting ready to go to bed, and neither one of us can sleep, and all of a sudden I hear the footsteps of his cat upstairs running around, and I went upstairs. I'm like, dude, get your cat under control because I'm not in the mood tonight. He's like, okay. So
that's great.
Yes. All right. I have we have no entries from Twitter. Twitter apparently doesn't like
tonight.
Yeah, I don't know why. Just people don't like me on Twitter anymore.
You can blame me for that one. I'll take the L there.
Not sure why, but okay. So yeah, that's it. So time for this.
Wait, what's supposed to happen?
This is where, right? Sam, I'm not gonna lie. There was a moment where I'm like, did I just forget Andrew? But he's not here. So I have forgotten him several times, and
he's not letting you live that down.
He really isn't, nor should he, and that's okay. So this is where we're going to give the movie a score from 0 to 10.
Okay.
Feel free to embrace the decimal. That's what I'll say, and I'll let you, Travis, go first.
I am going to give this an 8.9 out of 10.
8.9. Okay.
Just dig the hell out of this movie. It's everything I want in a horror movie. I'm much more of a build atmosphere, build the world, creep me out, not jump scare. And it had the right level of gore to be difficult without being too much for me. Mm-hmm. Plus, I mean, if nothing else, for the horrific scene of killing Baseball Boy and how effective that was. So yeah, 8.9 out of 10.
All right, Sam?
There are some scenes from this movie that will stick in my brain. Baseball Kid, of course, is certainly one of them. The beauty of the scene of her flying through the air to the house is also something that I just thoroughly enjoyed. And that's why when I realized I was watching it in the wrong medium and needed a bigger screen to see it. Love the ideas in this movie. Love the shining aspect. Love that they didn't get hokey with it. And I would recommend this thing. It's a great movie. 8.432 out of 10 for me. Okay. I embrace the decimal with 360 something episodes. I gotta break ties. No, I enjoyed it. I thought this was amazing. And in fact, I texted Sean earlier today. I had to go to a class, and I had to leave right after you realized that they had drugged the teddy bear instead of the girl. And I was so upset. And I was like, I couldn't believe I had to leave at that exact same moment, and not knowing what was going on, and you know, excited to see what would happen next. So I haven't been like that in a movie in a long time, where I totally enjoyed it.
That's awesome. Also, that poor teddy bear got green needle to the neck.
Yeah,
it felt bad. I felt bunny rabbit. I felt bad.
Bunny rabbit.
Yeah. I think I'm not said. Also, there's another reference to the Dark Tower. The balloons in her room spell the word Ka, K-A. So it's that.
Mm-hmm.
I can cheat. I can scroll back and look at our list of movies and see kind of what I gave other movies. So for example, I can go back and see that I gave Train to Busan a 7.6 and Gerald's Game a 6.8, and I gave I got to go back even farther for The Shining. I gave The Shining a 6.1. But I mean, yeah. Sam, you gave it a 6.66. It's not like you loved it.
Yeah,
way more than I did. Ooh, that was weird. But I really, really liked this movie. I think this movie is really, really good. I think more people need to see it. If you're listening to this show and you have not seen it, you need to watch it. Now, again, it's not streaming. So wait until, November or whatever, and it gets put back on HBO when she gets past October. Find a way to watch this movie. It's really good. And honestly, I'm really hoping that if HBO gets it back, they also get the director's cut. I want to watch the director's cut. I will
watch it again, absolutely, with the director's cut. I want to see it.
This movie makes me want to do more things. Like, this movie makes me want to read the book and watch more stuff. A lot of movies don't do that. A lot of movies don't make me want to do extra homework, but I really want to do that. So, again, in comparison to some other things that I've seen recently, I don't know. I'm going to give this a 9.1.
Oh, wow.
And that's nice. That's pretty high. I mean, I'm putting it over Terminator 2. Now, Terminator 2 is more watchability, more rewatchability. But there's something about this movie that just hits me in the right spot. I love the psychic parts and the mind things, and this movie just got me in the right spot. I don't know what it was, but man, it did. So 9.1. Really liked it. Seriously, go watch this movie. My gosh, what are you doing? All right. Last couple things here I have to play. Which sound clip should I do? I'm going to play this one.
Stop eating my sesame cake.
This is where we play the quote game. I have a giant quote board, movie quotes, 101 classic movie quotes. Last week was Yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon.
Oh, that's a good one.
And again, I have free stickers here for you, the listener. If you, listener, who's listening now, literally sends me a message through Facebook or Twitter, or some of you have my phone number.
I feel like this is the SNL Jeopardy skit where he's trying to get them to write actual numbers.
Just write your name. Anything, yeah. So here's the quote for this week. Number 37. You want the truth? You can't handle the truth. That's the quote. You just tell me what movie that's from. If you want extra points and tell me who says the line, I'll throw in a second sticker. All you have to do is message me. I will send you a sticker. So, there you go.
How can you say no to that?
How can you say no to that? Well, people have been saying no to it for 37 times. So.
Fair enough.
Yes. That's it. That's our show, right, Sam? Is there anything else I have to do? That's it. This is where I then give you, Travis, an opportunity to tell people where we can find you and your show and all the other things about what makes TV's Travis.
TVstravis.com is my website, and that's where I host my main show, which is Wait You Haven't Seen, and it's a podcast about watching movies and somebody watching it for the first time. So it's always fun. It doesn't always have to be my guest that is seeing something for the first time. I've had guests bring me things that I never would have watched, like Amelie or The Triplets of Belleville, are two movies that I never would have watched on my own. They're amazing, and they're some of my favorite things that I've seen in the last few years. So it's a lot of fun. It comes out on Wednesdays at tvstravis.com, anywhere you can get podcasts. I do stream it live as well on Sunday nights if you want to catch it live at Twitch, twitch.tv/tvstravis. And you're coming on in a few weeks.
Yes.
And I'm going to get you to watch Leon, the Professional.
That's right.
Because
I've never
that'll
seen
be
it.
A trip.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And I'm looking forward so much that I forgot to put it in my calendar, and I am scared.
It's okay. I would have reminded you.
Yeah, I know you would have. Oh, man. That's great. So, yeah, and I'll put the links to your website, tvstravis.com, on our show notes and things like that.
Absolutely. And any social media platform, I'm going to be TV's Travis on it, whether it's Twitch, Twitter, Instagram. I post pictures of my dog. That's pretty much it that I put up there. I'm most active on Twitter, and I love to get into conversation. So if you want to talk about movies or anything like that, I also do a show on Highlander, the series, because to me that is one of the better shows out of the 90s. We're midway through season 3 of that. There was 6 seasons of that show, believe it or not. So my friend Audie and I are going episode by episode through that. That's been a ton of fun. So I'll talk Highlander, I'll talk movies, music, whatever. I don't care. Just I love to interact with people on Twitter. So Twitter is TV Stravis.
Yeah, and he's being very sincere in that. One of the first communications I had with him was saying that I disagreed with him on his point of view for the movie Book of Eli. And we had a nice little conversation about how much he was wrong. So there you go.
Yeah, I am perfectly capable of being wrong quite a bit.
You're not wrong. It was again, that's a movie that just hits all the right buttons for me. Mm-hmm. That's our show. Next week we are doing The Conjuring 2. We did The Conjuring last year, I think, Sam, right? It was last year?
Yep.
We're doing The Conjuring 2. So we don't often do... No, it wasn't last year. Dang, it was 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
2019.
Last year was a pandemic year, so
yeah.
we kind of just lost our way.
So I say this before, and I'm going to say it again. Our Halloween months of cheap scare reviews, Halloweens, have been... They're usually pretty hit or miss, right? There usually is something interesting, and then there's usually something really bad. So far, I think we're doing pretty good. I mean, Blade last week is...
Blade's Blade.
It's Blade.
Yeah,
but we know what it
action.
is. Like, we know what it is. So I don't think of that as like a bad film. It's fine. It's what it is. And the next week is The Conjuring 2. So we'll see if the streak continues of having good movies. So
I'll say this about Blade. If we didn't have Blade in the 90s, we probably don't have Deadpool.
Yeah.
The way that we do.
Yeah.
Blade walked so that some of these other R-rated superhero movies could run.
Yeah.
Like Blade blazed the trail.
Well, and Blade 3 allowed Ryan Reynolds to get into a movie with swords and say funny things. I mean... and
that's about the only good thing that movie did. But
that's correct.
That's fine.
That is 100% correct. But there you go. That's our show. I have nothing more to say other than thank you so much for listening to our show. Cheapseatreviews.libsyn.com is our site where you can find all 366 other episodes that we've done. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/cheapseatreviews, @cheapseatcast is Twitter. Emails, if you ever want to do one of those things again, it's cheapseatreviews@gmail.com. And we do take requests, though we pretty much always have a guest now, which has been great. And speaking of, again, Travis, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was a blast.
Absolutely.
I knew we were going to have a good conversation. I had no idea it was going to go this long. I edit nothing. This is all going to air. This is great. So on behalf of Travis and Sam and Andrew, who says hi and wishes he was here, this is Sean saying thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.
This is Cheapseat Reviews.